Good evening and welcome. City of Lamarque City Council regular agenda of January 8th, 2024. Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Lamarque, Texas will conduct a regular meeting on January 8th, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. in council chambers at 1109 B Bayou Road, Lamarque, Texas, as well as via video conference hosted through Zoom. Accordance.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Joe. In accordance with section 551.127B of the Texas Local Government Code, the presiding officer and the quorum of the Lamarque City Council intend to be and will physically be present at 1109 B Bayou Road, Lamarque, Texas. This location will be open to the public and the meeting will be broadcast at this location on Channel 16 and via YouTube. The council will meet for the purpose of considering the following agenda. The meeting has been called to order. Kiara, would you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember District A,
Present.
Councilmember District B,
Present.
Councilmember District C,
Present.
and Councilmember District D,
Present.
and Mayor.
Present, thank you. We will now have our invocation and pledge. It is my understanding that we have the pleasure of a Reverend Otis Lane with us this evening. Welcome, Reverend Lane. You may approach. Reverend Lane will lead us in our invocation. And we would ask Mr. Garcia, who is a veteran, to lead us in our pledge. Let's stand.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father God, we're here right now, Lord God, to conduct the business of Lamarque, Lord God, in order that all the people may be secure and feel that the government is working for them, Lord God. So we ask that you anoint each person afresh in this new year, Lord God. And as you do that for them, Lord God, you allow them to do what is in the best interest of their constituency, Lord God, in order that they might move Lamarque to a place they all hope to be one of the best cities in Texas, Lord God. So we just ask you to protect all our officers that are present here and all the officers that are on the road, keeping our streets and us safe, Lord God. Again, we just ask that you anoint us afresh of it for the very first time. And if you do that for us, we'll be sure to give you all the glory. And in Jesus' name, and the people of God said, Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Lane. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. We move now to item 4, presentations. Item 4.1, water and wastewater impact fee analysis. Presentation of the 2023 water and wastewater impact fee analysis completed by Attico engineers, including land use assumptions and capital improvements to support growth within the city over the next 10 years. Mr. Garcia, is there a presentation that you would have for us?
Certainly, we'll pull that up right now. We'd also ask Brent to approach. IT will pull that up. Brief presentation. Brent is a representative from Attico who has worked on this presentation. As we know, we were given the actual direction to proceed with the stormwater, with the impact fees that are necessary for our water and our sewer. He'll give us a brief history as to how we got here and what the progressions are moving forward. If I could turn it over to Mr. Brent.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor. As Mr. Garcia stated, my name is Brent Bithy. I'm with Attico Consultant Engineers, and I'm here to present the land use assumptions for the City of Lamarque Impact Fee Analysis 2023 update and the capital improvement which support that impact fee. As you can see on the screen, if you follow with me, item A, we took a look at the population growth over the last 10 years based on the census numbers for the city of Lamarque and established that the population growth rate is at approximately 2.7%. This enabled us to project the population for 2033, which is the 10-year period. And item A, we see that the 2023 population was established at 19,664, and the projected population for 2033, 25,667. We also looked at connections within the city of Lamar over the past 10-year period using connection numbers we obtained from the city in order to project what our projected connection number would be in 2033. And looking at those numbers, we came up with a 2.69% or 250 connections per year, which gave us a total of 2,500 connections for the 10-year period. With these two numbers, we were able to establish a population per equivalent meter, which is a population per equivalent connection. These terms are used interchangeably, which came up, these numbers, we arrived at 2.4 persons per connection. And that's how we determine that, looking at the population numbers and the connection numbers. And these are projected numbers for the future 10-year period. Based on this, we arrived at an ultimate connection for projected to be approximately 13,782 based on the available developable areas within the city of Lamar. When I refer to developable areas, these are vacant tracts within the city of Lamar, and these are based on land use assumptions. So the ultimate population is projected to be 33,077 based on 2.4 persons per connection, and ultimate connection number 13,782. The table which follows includes all this information that I just explained to you. Can we move on to the next page, please? This table that you're looking at shows all the developable tracts within the city of Lamar. And it also states the project development type, whether these tracts are commercial, residential, mixed use, and so on. So what we did, we analyzed these tracts based on development in order to determine what services will be required in the future to service those tracts. And that's how we're able to develop the capital improvement plan projects to service these tracts. Capital improvement plan projects that we look at includes water supply to these tracts, sewer supply to these tracts, and any other infrastructure which are required to develop these tracts. The total amount, estimated usage we came up with is approximately estimated daily water usage. If you look at the bottom of the chart, is 1,532,300 gallons per day, which would be required to service those tracts based on their usage. Can we move on to the capital improvement projects? The next table shows the capital improvement projects. After analyzing the uses and the development of these tracts, we came up with these capital improvement projects, which would be required in order to service those tracts. Let me just explain a little bit clearer. We have a vacant tract and we're going to develop this tract. What we do, we analyze this tract to see what it takes to bring water service to this tract, sanitary sewer to this tract. Most times we have to, these include constructing lift stations or pump stations or water plant, increasing water plant capacities. I'll go through the wastewater projects with you, which are items 1, 2, 3, and 4 under the wastewater projects heading. The first was the University of Houston tract, the development of that tract, the capital improvement plan projects. The total amount for these projects in order to bring utilities to this site was $2,033,100. And all this cost is related to the development of this tract. Also, lift station number 16 upgrade, the total cost to provide utilities to this tract, $506,250. And item number 3 refers to the improvements to the influent lift station. The influent lift station is the lift station located at the wastewater treatment plant. And in order, as we increase development, we'd have to modify that lift station to cater to the increased development. And that amount is $1,687,500. Also, as we develop within the city, we increase the wastewater treatment capacity. The wastewater treatment capacity will be required in order to cater to this increased development. And that amount, based on our estimates, is $15,498,000. Total wastewater improvements, $19,724,850. Then we move on to the water projects to provide water utility to these tracts. The University of Houston tract project cost $491,400. The elevated storage tank at Take Point 2, $5,400,000. Item 3, 12-inch water distribution line from Cedar to Magnolia, and that's phase 1 of this project, $912,308. Item number 4, the 12-inch water distribution line from Stonewall to I-45, $3,197,738. And 12-inch water distribution line from Westwood to Newman, $3,404,728. Item 6, 12-inch water distribution line from 12th Street to Stubbs, $3,145,275. And item 7, the 12-inch water distribution line from 12th Street to Highway 146, $653,144. Also, there will be a required increase in the water supply capacity from the water that we purchase from GCWA, and that approximates $2,017,811. If you look in the next column, percent related to growth, you would see that there are some numbers that are 100% and it varies between 15 and 75. I'd just like to explain what this means. It means that as we develop those tracks, the infrastructure that we bring, it will be 100% related to that development. And in some cases, it varies 15%, 75%, 50%, 5%, and so on. I'd like to bring up the other chart, which is this chart. This diagram, this exhibit shows all the developable properties within the city of Lamarque. And it also explains what the usage or what the zoning for these properties are. So that concludes, and that summarizes the land use assumptions and the capital improvement projects which form the basis of the City of Lamarque 2023 update for its impact fee.
Very good. What was your name again?
Brent, but
Brent. May we call you Brent?
yes, that's fine.
Very good, Brent. Thank you for your presentation. If you don't mind, we will open this up to council for questions. Council, do we have any questions for Brent at this time?
Yeah. So on page 3 of the first presentation where it says water supply capacity purchased from GCWA service 10-year growth plan, is that $2 million? Is that annual or is that 2 million over the 10-year?
2 million over 10 years.
Okay.
Is that all you had, Mr. Ross?
That's it.
Anyone on my right? Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Brent, just some clarifications. I'm stumped, or please explain to me, and maybe it's the impact committee members. I think there was a committee associated with this, right? This
Yes,
report.
there was the advisory committee.
I don't quite, on page 2, explain to me how they're going to be 507 estimated number of new connections at the University of Houston site when it's not a development site.
You said when it's not, so we estimate that this tract will be developed as a commercial site. And that's how we approximate the number of connections is based on acreage.
What's the, I operate in the world of facts and what's the basis of that, making that assumption? What's your
Well-
proof?
Well, we look at the surrounding development in that area. And we make a determination as to what this could possibly be over a 10-year period. Based on what we see currently. Because everything around it has been developed as commercial or residential. So we look at it, it's an assumption.
So, okay, let's assume it's an assumption. As part of this assumption, we make educated assumptions. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Well, based upon, certainly, we want everything in front of us, right? So did
Yes.
anyone reach out to the University of Houston, their planning department, their board of governors, if necessary, to say, with regard to this track in Lamarque, what are your future plans for this track? Because we're updating our impact fees assumptions.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may. There's another discussion going on with University of Houston on that specifically that we're not privy to release just yet, but there have been possible scenarios that have been brought forward for possible development. Nothing concrete yet, but some of the things that are done are based on assumptions similar to how this same study was done back in 2018 and a presentation was done in 2019 to get us to the point where we are now.
Well, sir,
I'd
let's go
just
back.
like to add,
Mhm.
So the impact fee update is done every 5 years.
Okay,
So we base that on that assumption. However, in the next 5 years, if we determine that this is not the way that things are going, then we update the impact fee as again.
so the last one, the 5-year one, sorry, I wasn't here, but what did it say with regard to the University of Houston site?
Well,
Did it list 507 connections?
I don't have that study in front of me
You
right
see,
now.
that's incomplete. I want to see that study.
Excuse me?
I would like to see that study.
Okay,
That's how I compare.
okay.
I want to see what we've done because historically, I'm the old timer here. We don't do our work here in Lamarque. We forget about history. And and so we've got all these different reports. New people come in and they don't even remember the report that occurred. So I'm not blaming you, Brett. This is just something.
In my defense, I'd like to say that.
No, I'm not blaming you for
No,
anything.
I'm just saying, we do look at the 2018 report
Okay,
and we do update it based on what we see happening.
Okay.
So it's not that we just
right.
trash it to the side and move
Well, I
on.
appreciate
And
that.
if you look at both of the reports, you'll see a lot of similarities between the two of them.
So someone just please provide me a copy of the
Okay.
2018.
Well,
It's,
right.
Mayor Pro Tem, it's actually in our packet.
It's in the
It's-
2018,
yes.
the same
it
number.
says it's in the packet.
Okay.
It is in the packet.
So let me ask you, now, what's the assumption? The Marque site is a Superfund site. The development area number 26, Crossroads Marque, is a Superfund site. Superfund was determined that there were pollutants there
Mhm.
that are dangerous.
I'm aware of what's
Okay.
the fun side.
And to humans or anybody, I guess, benzene. And there we've got 384 connections that's listed here. So where do we get this
Here.
assumption that we're going to make connections out there?
So
Pro Tem, if-
there are,
If I can, we are working on a possible development on that site that has that. We're hoping to announce here very soon. We're not at verge of that yet, but there has been many vetted discussions with potential development for that area. So the numbers that are shown would be supported.
And I just want to add, a site being a Superfund site doesn't mean that it cannot be developed.
Oh, I agree with you because I've talked with,
Okay. All right.
yes, I agree with you there. I'm interested in the numbers and I guess I like details. Okay, let's go on. What that University of Houston tract development, explain to me the wastewater projects. This is assuming an improvement sometime over this 10-year period. Is that accurate to say?
That would be the hope
Yes.
if certain things come to fruition. Yes,
If they come to fruition.
correct.
All right.
This presentation is to fulfill a mandate that we need to do every 5 years. We
Okay.
project for the next 10 years. And this is specific to the impact fees that would be charged to future developers to be able to tie in. For example, right now, the water line project that's being done from I-45 to Stonewall, correct, is part of that project that we're doing with some of those impact fees. So the study that was done back in 2018, presented analysis was in 2019, and here we are now 5 years later, bringing those to fruition because certain developments that were on that project came true, and now we've been able to provide that service.
So the ultimate goal, this is a question.
Sure.
Someone help me out. The ultimate goal is to adjust our impact fees? Is that the goal of this report?
To
So-
update.
To
so-
update?
So it's an update. Development occurs in the future and you don't want to be, for lack of a better description, caught with your pants down,
Right,
or you're not prepared for that development.
right.
So what we do, we project what that development would be. And by so doing, we put numbers to the utilities that are gonna serve these developments. And by so doing, the city is able to collect impact fees to provide those utilities when that time comes.
Okay, let me ask you, number 8, Mr. Councilmember Ross was asking, this is on this page, is it page 3?
You could call it.
The water capacity purchase. You make a note there, it says 2015 purchase. That has been updated. Our purchase is actually an agreement that we updated in 2020, as I recall.
Right.
On that one.
However, in order to meet these demands of greater population growth, if you notice, we would possibly go from the 19 to 20,000 that we're at now in the next 10 years to possibly supersede 33,000. If at the maximum rate we would grow as such, to do so, there'd be an associated cost with not just the use of that water, but the accessibility to as much water that we would need to provide for that many people, whether it's businesses or residents, for that many connections.
Well,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I understand that. My question only is relevant to the source document. It's talking about 2015, when in fact, accurately, we have an updated document with regard to our purchase of water from the Gulf Coast Water Authority
Where are you referring to?
on page 3 of 3.
And which item number?
The 8, the water supply capacity purchase from GCWA to service 10-year growth.
I'm sorry. Can you put up this document, please? Because I think it's probably an error in the document that you have. The document that I have, the current one, is actually 2023 purchase.
Oh, you says 2023. That
Yes.
is in there. Okay.
Yes. So
All right.
perhaps you may have gotten an earlier version.
Oh, it's on page 3 of 3.
Yeah, mine said, that's why I was asking, because mine says 2023. So we have since updated that document.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize. It's
Thank you.
2020.
For pointing that out.
All right. And just one last item on the survey map
Yes, sir.
here with regard to, you made the statement about zoning. And this map here, is this well, it's very, very nice. It simplifies our last revision of the zoning ordinance. That it's very nice, but it's not accurate.
Let me correct that statement. So this map is based on the assumed usage of these properties,
Okay.
not zoning.
Okay, all right, that's the other point. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Brent, Rick, Caesar. I want to ask several questions and I really don't want to spend a lot of time on explanations. I like to try to get to the heart of what I'm asking, if you don't mind. Brent, yes or no, the idea of impact fees is to allay any cost for capital improvements on a taxpayer to move that to the development or the developer. Is that correct?
The developers, to ensure that developers pay their share.
The new development pays for itself. Is that right?
Yes, they pay
So,
their share.
so the idea of an impact fee is to, so that we're clear, is to relieve the burden on the taxpayer. Is that safe to say?
That's correct.
Here's my question. In what this document Joe was referring to, and I lost it on my screen. And so Joe, if you can help me find it.
Which one?
For the document where there's these new phases of possible improvement.
Right
Yeah,
here.
you're referring
right
to
there.
the capital
Page 2.
improvement projects, this one,
Right there.
the projects.
Right. Couple things. Phase one of this, I believe, excuse me, phase one, number 3, phase one.
The
12
wastewater projects.
It says it's capital improvement project number 3. And it says 12-inch water distribution line, Cedar to Magnolia, phase
Okay,
one.
that's the water project. So this table is divided into wastewater projects and water projects.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I don't care
Okay.
about all that. I wanted to go back. The idea of an impact fee, right, is that new development pays for itself in essence. Probably a little more complicated than that, but that's that. Okay.
That's fine.
New development. Okay. Here's my question. So, according to this document, impact fees can be used for capital improvements and facility expansion. That's what it can be used for. Capital improvements and facility expansion. It shall not be used for repair of existing upgrades or upgrade existing infrastructure or even to provide better services. So impact fees can't be used to repair anything we already have. They can't be used to upgrade anything we already have. And well, let me finish my question.
That's fine.
Because I'm reading this as all of our residents would read this. So we want to get clarity tonight, right? Also, it can't be used to even provide a better service to anything existing. That's according to the document that we have before us tonight. So help explain to me then how item 3, 12-inch water distribution line from Cedar to Magnolia, phase one, how that's new development. It says it's 50% is related to growth, but this is an older portion of our city. And then phase 2, it says water distribution line, Stonewall to I-45. It says 75% of this is related to new growth. How is this is an existing portion of our community. So how is this? And I can continue to go on. There's several of these, even down, and this is the one that I have the greatest question on. I believe down at the bottom of the page, it talks about increasing the capacity of the existing wastewater treatment plant.
That's correct.
That's I have a question on that one because we are implementing a grant or administering a grant from the federal government to do exactly that. So these impact fees, this analysis, it appears as though some of the projects listed may not meet the criteria. Again, this is something that you all are presenting to us tonight. So this is not something this council has adopted or accepted or recommended or even agreed upon, right? So that's the first question that I'd like you to answer. How is it that your organization is suggesting that we may use impact fees for areas of our community and the infrastructure that already is in existence?
So the city of Lamarque has a network, a water system network. If you increase demand on that network, you run the risk of not being able to keep up with the capacity of the existing network. In order to provide that service to new development, you'd have to either make the network better or increase its capacity. And primarily, this is what these water lines, improving the condition of these water lines. The city of Lamarck has gone through a lot of water breaks in the city. If we put more pressure on the city's infrastructure, these utilities will not be able to keep up with it. So in my judgment, if I were to increase the usage of the utilities in the city, I mean, we'd just go through the same process. In order to do that, we'd have to improve what's existing. And these pipes are really old pipes. I remember we have AC pipes, and these pipes, yes, sir.
I wanted you to finish your statement, but I wanted to push back on it.
So yes, I understand where you're coming from, that we're using it for existing utilities. But if we didn't have the increased development, we wouldn't have to improve the existing infrastructure.
That may be a very true point, Brent, and you just happen to be the person in front of us. And so we want to make sure that we're understanding that you're the person that's here to answer the questions. That's a great point. I'm sure it's a valid point, but I go back to my original point. And
No,
in this
I'm not
document,
trying to make a point, but this is how we analyze the impact fee.
I get that. But what you just said, Brent, and I respect it. What you just said was there is a greater demand on the system. And so because there's a greater demand on the system, the entire system needs to be upgraded.
Not the entire system. The parts that are connected to the areas of development need to be improved. Let's just.
Are those parts, Brent? Just because I have a lot of questions tonight.
Okay, I just want
Just-
to make sure I'm clear. and
Sure, you're very
clear.
clear, and I appreciate I appreciate your participation in this, but let's be very clear. The parts of our infrastructure that connect new development are in essence existing. Is that right? Yes or no? They're already here.
Can you repeat that question?
The parts of the infrastructure that you're referring to that would connect new development, those
Some of
parts.
these are existing.
Okay,
That's correct.
and the only question I had was, the document says it shall not be used for the repair of, or the upgrading of, or even to provide better service to existing infrastructure. And that's
But-
really all
but
I just,
Also,
Okay.
I'm just trying to make it clear. We're not just upgrading existing infrastructure. We're upgrading existing infrastructure to cater to new development, because that new development would provide pressure on the existing infrastructure. And if you do that, it may not be able to hold because the infrastructure is really old. So if we're going to supply service to these areas, we ought to upgrade those utilities. Otherwise, everybody's going to suffer when they start breaking.
I agree. Great
Yeah.
point. But that's
So-
not what the document says. And this is what I want to get down into as we have this conversation, Britt. All I'm trying to do is to understand what the document is saying, right? And the document is saying that we as a council, as a community, are not allowed to use impact fees to upgrade existing infrastructure. If you're telling me that this 50%, and this is what I'm trying to give you an opportunity to do, right? Let me help you. So this 50% is the part of this that will incur new development. Okay. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
So
that's
then-
why some of them are 100%, some of them are 50%.
That's what I was trying to ask you. So now, if that's true, with those that are less than 100%, there should be a development associated. Is that safe to say? So you just,
Yes,
so we should be able to, for phase one, there should be a development. We should know that planning and zoning is moving through a new subdivision, or the Economic Development Corporation has acted upon a meaningful development.
let me
Okay.
correct that statement.
Okay, help me.
So like I said in the beginning, impact fees are collected for future development. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to build a new pipe network because we have a development right now. We anticipate there's going to be a development, so we plan for it. We don't wait till the development comes and then do it. We plan for it based on what's in the impact fee study. Now, the capital improvement projects and the land use assumptions, they're not on their own, they're together. And we can't look at them in isolation. They have to be together. because the land use assumptions that we make, that justifies those capital improvement projects.
So here, I get it. So let's go back. So part of this impact fee is the idea that over here in this area that we don't know about, there is a development that perhaps may take place. That's basically
An assumed development based on the land use,
an assumed development based on
the land use.
land use.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's why we have the land use to actually go hand in hand with the capital improvement projects. We can't look at them in isolation.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The other issue I'm having with this, again, there's an issue I still have with using impact fees for existing infrastructure. That has not been clarified for this council. Just on this recommendation, I'm just letting you know.
Can I clarify that,
You can try.
please? Okay.
You can try.
So let's just say we have a tract over here and we have an existing water line here. And we assume that in the future, we're going to supply water to this tract. However, this water line in this location, it's not modern enough, or it's not strong enough, or it cannot cater to that development. But we anticipate that we're going to develop this tract over there. So we assume that in anticipation of this tract developing, we can't wait till we start developing the tract to now say, okay, I guess we got to improve the water system. So these go hand in hand. And that's why I guess we're seeing that we're improving existing infrastructure, but there's no development. However, the land use is what drives that improvement in order to cater to that tract in the future. Because if we don't improve it now, in the future, when we develop this tract, we're going to have a problem.
So here's the question then. If this tract of land that is open for future development is 5 miles this way, and the infrastructure that needs improvement is here, basically, right?
You're saying it's in the opposite direction, so there's
Let's say it's way out here, but the infrastructure that you're talking about us upgrading or repairing is on, let's say, it's from Cedar to Magnolia, right? What I'm asking you is, who's responsible for paying for those infrastructure upgrades, the other 50%?
well, the other 50% would fall on the city.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm trying to understand from you through this process, how is it that we are making assumptions, we're providing studies on future impacts based on future land usage, based on things like, let's see, let me go back. Aerial mapping is something that was used to provide this data. Houston Galveston Area Council planning and resources was used to provide this data. But what I don't see is any report from any financial institution, any economist, any economic forecast, any municipal analysis. So you're looking at an aerial map and you're looking at a regional resource, but you're not looking at an individual financial forecast for our county or our community. You're not looking at any resources our municipality may or may not have.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how could I possibly use that information to make an engineering judgment as to the utilities that are required for a particular development of a particular tract. I mean, the impact fee study that we do, not with this city, but with all other cities, it takes the same approach. We never look at these numbers because these things could change.
Right.
So we strictly look at the development of a tract and what it takes to develop this tract and to bring utilities to this tract. And then we estimate the cost of the improvements of the infrastructure or the cost to bring utilities to that tract.
Right.
I don't see how I could use this
So-
information.
And you can't, and that's the point I'm trying to make. This council has to have more information than just an impact study fee. And the reason I'm questioning you about these things and I'm leading you to this point is we're gonna be asked to adopt some of these things, right? And we need more information.
What other information do you need?
Well,
Because I need to know so I could provide that information.
well, we may not need more information from you. We need more information from our administration. There are other factors, right? We are a pro-business city. We're a city that wants to have business and economic development. Those impact fees are things that people consider, that developers consider when they're coming to our city. And so I want to make sure that those impact fees are as low as possible for us to be able to provide the services we need so that we would be able to attract, right, developers and not repel developers.
So I don't have that document in front of me, but we did a comparison with impact fees of other cities in the area. And we tend to always be on the same platform with most of the cities around. So if you want to be the lowest, then it means that we're just going to have to spend more money for the infrastructure for development, which means the developers would pretty much get a slap on the wrist as opposed to other cities. in
What we
the
want,
area.
what we want, Brent, and what I said earlier is we want to make sure that we are providing for infrastructure
Mhm.
that will serve the needs of those developers and those developments as cost effective as possible. Let me make sure that we're understanding of that.
Yeah.
We don't know what these impact fees, what these recommendations are as they relate to other cities,
Okay.
right? You get what I'm saying?
I
We
understand.
want to be competitive.
Yeah.
Roger.
And you are competitive. I mean, we tend to be competitive. Before we even embark on this study, we look at impact fees of surrounding cities and we compare it to what you charge here in Lamarck. And that information is gonna be in the final report.
Question, Brent, just a minute, Caesar. Was there any adjustment for any new regulations as it relates to COVID and water supply and infrastructure?
No, there isn't any adjustment as it relates to
So
COVID.
this study was done in 2018 and
No, the previous one was done in 2018. Yes, that's correct.
right, that's the one that we have in our packet, yes?
No,
It is in
this
the
one,
packet.
yes.
2018 and
yes,
19
That's correct.
analysis.
And we're doing the update to the 2018.
So what then how did your recommendations change from the 2018 study, from the 2018 study that we have in our packet?
Okay, so our recommendations are, I mean, again, let me just go through this. Typically, we look at the city of Lamarck and we look at developable land. So we look at this developable land and we see, okay, what usage of these properties is gonna be, what usage they're gonna be put to. And then we determine how we bring infrastructure to these properties. We also look at, okay, how much is the cost of infrastructure? What is the cost of infrastructure currently? And these costs are strictly based on what we see now. So we look at current prices. I'm trying to figure out how do we intertwine the effects of COVID into this. From an engineering standpoint, we typically I can't say we're gonna, put a percentage or allocate a percentage or reduction or something of that nature. It's not general engineering practice.
Just trying to get an understanding of how things change. COVID was a
I'll tell you how
life-changing.
it changed. Prices increased significantly.
Okay.
So we look at current prices. I mean, the cost of, let's just take a look at item 4 under the wastewater. I mean, the estimated cost per gallon is $16. I mean, long time ago, it was $10 and $12.
Did you at all make any adjustments based on the growth of our city? For example, I believe
We did take a look at the population numbers for the city, and that's how we came up with the population assumptions.
what are our, if and Caesar, this is to you, what's our total connections, water connections currently?
Last time I checked, we were hovering just under 8,000 there.
8,000. And what year is this?
That was as of 23.
As of 2023, I believe.
End
that-
of 23.
At the end of 2023. I believe that the projection in the 2018 document says that we would be around 6,600 or so connections for 2023. There's a
That's true, sir. I was
Right.
gonna point that out.
so 2023, it says that we would have 6,600 connections. And you said we have how many?
Last time we checked, we were under 8,000.
So what happens, I'll chime in a little bit here, maybe I'll try to help. The projections on these is certainly a crystal ball. So you can tell by the 2018 report, they have down in 2027, we have 7,000 connections. We're 7,500, 7,600, just under 8,000, as you mentioned. Population projection was 19,266. So the 2018 numbers were admittedly low. So what happens from an engineering standpoint and some recommendations from staff is we try to be conservative with numbers because we don't want to overshoot things and say we need to spend $1 billion when we only need half a billion, right? To your point.
Right.
So we don't want to spend a lot of money. However, we have a certain amount of money in our capital improvement fund that's been sitting there for a while. We are spending money out of that capital improvement fund, out of the impact fee fund with these projects we have ongoing. So that's something to be aware of, that finally we're actually moving money out of that impact fee. We've been collecting money. Now we're going to spend it. What we don't want to do is deplete it. One of the things that I want to make sure we all understand is we move a lot of water. Our main take point from Gulf Coast Water Authority is over on 5th and Orchid, over on 1765 in the northeast section of the city. We have to move that water clear across town under I-45 to get it to the development areas along I-45. We do have a take point on the west side of 45, but it's a smaller take point. Our major take point is a major amount of water. So these water lines that you see on the capital improvement projects strictly has to do with us moving water, as Brent was saying, from point A to point B, because we have to be able to move water through the city. That 12-inch water main that we recently put on 1765, this project continues that, is part of doing that, of moving water from Stonewall tank, including a new tank on the west side, and moving that water throughout the city, because we need to be able to have that connectivity between both sides of the take. The take points are far apart, but these water lines that we're dealing with, if they're too small, they will cause us problems.
Too old.
Or too old, right? And so the idea is, at least from a planning standpoint, which is what really this is all about, into a crystal ball. And you can see from the 2018 report that they were wrong.
Well,
They were, the numbers were lower. We've grown at a bigger rate, right? So the impact fees that were actually calculated at the time were probably low. So the impact fees that we're collecting right now very well may be lower than what they should be, because the calculations that were done based on that 2018 report admittedly are low. I mean,
We have
they're
exceeded those
projected.
expectations.
and I just want to add that we make these assumptions for the updates, and then the update comes and we look at those numbers again. And that's why it's done every 5 years, and we don't leave it till 10 years, because that way we could see, okay, we assume this, but let's see what in actuality it is, so that we don't collect enough.
Yeah, but we can't continue, guys.
But we're not spending money. We're planning here. We're planning for development. Now, if in the next 5 years we do an update and we see, well, we planned for the U of H track and that didn't come to fruition, then we need to update the report to reflect that. And that's why we have these 5-year updates.
Yeah, I get all that, and it's great. I think that, again, what we don't want to do in this history of our city, especially with the 45 expansion, is we don't want to hamstring developers. interest rates are high, money is hard to come by. And so that's causing problems for developers. And so we don't want to add to their problems because this is Lamarque's time. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I do realize that your function is one part of this, Brent. And I said to you earlier, you're going to get questions.
That's fine.
And a lot of them you couldn't answer. I get that. The design of what I was trying to communicate is that this council has to look deeper at these impact fees and consider other areas of information before we make decisions. And that's the only point I was.
And Mayor, just to make you feel better, this is not the only city where that concern is raised. Every single city has that concern because everybody wants to be pro-development as opposed to cause developers to move away because impact fees are too high.
Two questions for you, Rick, and maybe one of them, Ms. Turner might help us answer. So let's try that one first. The scenario that I have in my head is that there is a potential land use to the eastern portion of our city. And we know that there are serious issues with the main 12-inch line that already exist. And so we think in order to make sure we're ready for this new development or potential new development, let's go ahead and repair this 12-inch line. Let's use taxpayer resources to do so. And then when this new Walmart or whatever it is actually comes into fruition, those impact fees that are paid are then used to reimburse our general fund or wherever these monies will come from for existing repairs, upgrades, for existing infrastructure. I hope that's not what happens. That's a question for you, Rick, or Christine, or Ms. Turner, or even Caesar.
So I can relate to an existing project that we're doing. The water line replacement that we're doing on Main Street is being funded by ratepayers, not impact. Because even though that existing pipe is old, we're not really upsizing that pipe. It's not going to deliver any more capacity than the existing pipe that's in the ground. So if you can upsize the pipe, so we got an 8-inch pipe you're referring to instead of a 12, or if it's a 12 and we deem that we need to put in a 16 or an 18, you could make the case that additional carrying capacity was for that development. That absolutely could.
But it says upgrade. It says no upgrades though.
It
Not for existing, but it can be used for future.
I had it a minute ago. There's a caveat on that one clause within that ordinance. And it talks about that if it's for, let me see if I can find it again, sir. I scrolled off of it. However, that impact fees may be used to pay for the cost of upgrading, expanding, or replacing existing capital improvement in order to meet the need for the new capital improvements generated by the new development. So it's kind of double language there, but basically I think what we're saying is that if you upgrade an existing line, we have an existing line. If you upgrade that line and make it larger because of development, I believe that section 4 does allow that impact fees can be used for that.
Let's do this. Gus, you've heard this discussion. I won't put you on the spot. Could you help counsel? You just email us. You've heard our discussion. You've heard the concern. If you research that and email us.
Absolutely, Mayor. And one thing that I will ensure that I point out, and something that may have been glossed over through no fault of anyone's, when we talk about facility expansion, we are talking like the water line that was mentioned. This is a new water line. This is not some repair that is going on. And I will make sure that distinction, I address that distinction.
Okay. Last thing that I need to solve for my portion of this is, again, we've received grant monies, federal dollars to expand our wastewater treatment plant. And yet in this presentation, prior to, it's a 2018 presentation, it speaks to impact fees for the expansion of a wastewater treatment plant. How do we reconcile that?
So we have to determine what impact new developments have on existing infrastructure. Now, again, this is strictly a planning document in order to plan for the future. Doesn't necessarily mean that, let's just say the wastewater plant is expanded. There's no need for us to go build an additional expansion for a new development if it has capacity. I mean, I would, go ahead.
And one thing I would bring up is for clarity, the existing expansion of the wastewater treatment plant was driven by TCQ because the existing plant rated at 3 MGD was being overloaded by the system. And we were outside of regulations because we had exceeded our effluent flow, our flow that we were discharging to that plant on multiple occasions. So we were forced by the state, by TCQ, to improve, to build existing facilities to handle the flow. Now, some of that flow admittedly is I&I, which we're also working on through the grant program, and that project's kicking off here very soon in order to reduce I&I. But TCQ, they don't care. They only care about the numbers. And right now, on a rainy day, we're pushing about 7 to 8 million gallons through a 3 MGD treatment plant. That is against regulations by TCQ. So that alone is what drove the issue to expand the plant. It wasn't driven by development.
It's the numbers.
Existing flow.
And it's the data that the TCQ receives from the city based on your effluent meter, whatever comes out of that and it goes to the TCQ. The TCQ doesn't see infiltration. They only see what comes out of the plant. And if you exceed your flow 3 times consecutively in I think it's a 6-month period, then you're required to start planning.
Yeah. But the thing.
But until you fix that problem and the information that goes to the TCQ shows otherwise, then that's just what you have to do. And like Rick said, it's being worked
I mean,
on.
once we get the I&I problems remedied, our dry weather flows through the treatment plants about 1.5 MGD.
Right.
So the treatment plant with 3 MGD, we're only running 50%. However, because of the porous nature of our system, when we have rainfall events like today, those flows go way high. And so that's what was driven through the whole expansion. Once we get that fixed, if we find out, because we'll have a 5.5 MGD treatment plant, which according to those numbers, and we talked engineering, we talked about that on paper, the 5 MGD treatment plant should cover the city at capacity. However, if we still have some I&I problems, we still need to make additional expansions in order to control them.
And if I may, Mayor, is your question, put another way, what happens if we bring in more impact fees and the project's already been done through grant money or through something else? What do we do then? Is that
Well, a couple of things that I didn't like. I don't like the idea that we believe, it seems like we believe that we can use impact fees to upgrade existing infrastructure if that existing infrastructure leads to more infrastructure in new development. I don't like that idea. And I suspect that if we believe that, then we might believe that we can repair and replace lines and upgrade existing infrastructure. And then when impact fees are paid by new development, we can use that money to repay what we used to repair existing infrastructure. And I just fundamentally don't agree with that. That drives up impact fees. And if impact fees are being driven up, then it is causing us to have problems with new development. Again, money is expensive. Interest rates are high. Marque is open for business. We want to make sure that we relieve the burden of the taxpayer and put that burden on folks that can actually afford to pay for these things. Lamarck has been taxed too high. We all get it. And we're on a mission to make sure that our taxes are reduced. Part of that is to look with a microscope at every opportunity to make things easier and to relieve the burden on the taxpayer. And impact fees is an area that we need to make sure we got our ducks in a row. That's why.
Appreciate it.
And that's why I brought up that the 16-inch main line, the Main Street, because basically it's tentatively, you could refer to it as a repair replacement, because we're replacing the existing pipe. We're not upside. That is not being paid by impact.
Okay, I just want to make sure Ms. Turner, excuse me, Rick. Ms. Turner, we're all, okay, I got you. I won't continue. Brent, again, thank you for being a good sport. I
don't
think
like-
Joe
I
may
don't
have some
like
questions.
It makes it look like I just got by.
But you do understand that we have
I prefer
we have
thanks for
questions.
my work.
There you go. Go ahead, Joe.
Right, this, the mayor's questions, prompted question. Ultimately, this process is we're gonna have an ordinance before us that sets updated impact fees. That's the goal, correct?
That is correct. And council has the discretion to set the fee could go down if council so
Yeah.
chose.
Okay, so that's,
We make a
council-
recommendation.
okay.
And
And so
that's
number
all we
one,
do.
now, when you make the recommendation, in the 2018 impact fee summary, section 5.3 says maximum impact fee calculation. There's a formula here. Are you still going to be using the same formula? Or is the formula itself going to be somehow updated?
I don't have the formula in front of me.
Well, it's right. It says maximum impact fee calculation, one for water, one for wastewater. And
Oh,
then
that might be-
it goes on to also set forth the total impact fee there by meter size, by different 6-inch compound all different stuff here.
Yeah, so I would say that, yes, we are using the same formula because the impact fee study is the same throughout. I mean, it's the same process. However, there is part of the report states a reduction in the impact fee, a 50% reduction also. And if you read further, it allows you to reduce that impact fee by 50%. So
And part of the reason, let me ask, this impact fee study, I know it's part of our charter or what we require, but is it something that all other cities are required to do?
Every city does it. It's in the local government
It's in
code.
the
So
local
when
government code.
Brent and Rick have been talking about what the statute says, that's chapter 395
Okay,
specifically.
and you are
Yes.
going to provide that additional information of what
Yeah.
the fees are being charged by the other cities.
yes,
And,
it's gonna be in the report.
just a last comment, and Councilperson Yancey, Councilperson Ross, you guys may remember this, and perhaps the mayor too, but at our TML conferences, I know the different conferences I've gone to annually, there's significant discussion about impact fees at some of the breakout sessions. And in the context of that, there's apparently, God knows Austin and I'm bay myself. I just said the fine people up there in Austin. But they believe that we're out of control. We cities, municipalities are out of control, that we can't. But of course, and that there's pressures upon them to somehow limit what cities can do with regard to impact fees. So I think that's part of this also, this
Yes,
discussion.
I think that's what Mayor is alluding to,
Mm.
that we shouldn't get out of control.
Yeah.
With impact fees to drive people away. And
That's
I
the
had a
message.
similar discussion in another city likewise. So you're not the only one considering that because everybody wants to attract developers.
Right.
And we by no means as engineered are just sticking numbers out there. I mean, we take into consideration the discussions that we have here today.
Right.
And what we see happening around us, we take into consideration what happens in other cities, because we definitely don't want you to be the highest. And then all the other cities have been developed and city of Lamarque is struggling.
Right.
That's not our plan.
Right. Very good. Any further questions? Again, Brent, thank you for your participation in this rigorous debate. Rick, as always, we've enjoyed you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Now, item 4.2, communication update. I believe that would be Mr. JB Pritchett. Welcome, JB.
Thank you so much. Good evening to the council and to our citizens. Give me one quick second. All right. So as we have evidently discussed over the last little bit, we had the update of the City of Lamarque mobile app that went live about 2 months ago. With that was also my plan to kind of show and roll out the new website. The new website is more than just something new and pretty. It ultimately came from taking a lot of time to listen, to each one of you, not only interactions with city council, but also how you interact with your constituents. I think one of the major things that I've tried to do is I hear my father's voice in my head. Not everybody knows computers like you, son, and you've got to explain it to me simple. And so with that is not the point to create a new website for the city of Lamarque to get points for doing a lot of work in a short amount of time, but it is to listen to citizens, 3 of which are sitting behind me, Mr. Osteen, Mr. Pennington, and Mr. Cornett, all major historians of Lamarque, but all of them have had problems with their perspective boards or commissions or just being citizens with the website, whether that is the tools that we use to put out information, as well as how we disperse information, but ultimately how citizens access this information. One of the major things, Mayor Pro Tem, I know that you love how our current website, you can just search for something. One of the things that I've heard over really the last 6 months is I hate how I want to search for something and it doesn't necessarily pull up what I want to find. Ultimately, if you'll turn your eyes to the screen, the search bar in the top right corner is a bit more robust than what we currently have. You're not going to see all of the back end of this, and it's not currently live. So I'll just please ask for a little bit of patience. But that search bar is not only going to search what's listed on the website, but through work with the company that we use, Civic Plus, is also Civic Clerk, Civic Engage, Civic Ready, which is our side of that for our city clerk. It's our side for mass notifications. It's how we alert people, such as at the top of the screen, that there's a tornado watch January 8th until 9 p.m. in our city. So I'm going to speak fast so we can get home before, if God forbid that happens. Ultimately, I wanted to make this not only attractive for all of the growth that Brent has talked about in the future, but also attractive for business growth. I think that as we look and if we talk about, the west side of our city and, we're getting new businesses and we're breaking ground, all of the above, but it's also the attraction of our historic side of our city to develop businesses along the Highway 3 corridor and Texas Avenue here in the city of Lamarque. So ultimately, as we improve our infrastructure, has been discussed for the last little bit of time, also improving our digital space to be used for developers, for businesses moving here. I've also listened to the other department heads and kind of talking about what is needed ultimately for us as staff to communicate that information, to do our best job and to put our best foot forward. At the top of that really is just agendas and minutes, city government, employment. I don't know if I'm sure the city manager has shared with y'all, but as we are starting new instances, even one job posting that we put out, we're and I won't say a specific percentage because I don't want to lie to you, but I will say that it's been an abundant increase of how we get information out, how we look at prospective talent, how we are attracting people not only to live and bring their businesses to Lamarque, but those kind of stepping into this public servitude in 2024 and how they can be part of Lamarque rather than another city in Galveston County. One of the other major points is where it says utility billing, as we transition for all residents to be able to pay their bills online, for them to be able to sign up for that to be a transfer straight from their bank rather than paying a credit card. That saves them that 3.25 processing fee. So there are alternatives with this system that will give people the ability to use technology for, ease of access without just saying, oh, well, we've got to charge another fee on top of that. The report of concern, ultimately, we've all kind of talked about. It's something that I will talk about until the cows come home, to be honest with you, because that's how we hold each other accountable for the work being done in the city of Lamarque. When someone were to make a comment or to complain about a certain pothole on Facebook, part of my workflow is to create a report of concern so that I can have an actual work order attached to it. I can see the progress. I can see the department head assigning that to a staff member. And then at completion, it can be taken back to the citizen. One of the things is, for me in communication, I try to even communicate those work orders with them so that if, Cesar Garcia, citizen of Lamarque, you're my example, I'm sorry, citizen of Lamarque has a has a concern, and we internally create work orders, we then can communicate back to the citizen, here's the work order, here's the progress that we've seen, please let us know if you have questions. So whether it is a water line that is closing a park currently at JC, or how we're updating our citizens with that, but updating them with the work being done in real time. The last you'll see at the top is just kind of what is known as Notify Me, which is our alert system. Tonight is a perfect example. It's not hurricane season. I think here on the Texas coast, we always kind of think June and November is hold on to your hat, don't make any major plans, but it happens all the time. I think Winter Storm Uri impacted Lamarque in a different way off hurricane season. We see that we have threats of tornadoes here in Galveston County. And one of the major things is we want to make sure, whether it is to just notify people of, our Christmas parade or Bayou Fest, but also notify them when certain instances that require their attention. Vinny, if you'll move down just a tad. The major thing that I kind of incorporated into this design are what is known as these panels. These panels can and will change regularly. I put these here because they're ultimately what's kind of been talked about the last few months, what'll kind of be hot topic items currently as I make this go live. But ultimately, what new people to the city of Lamarque, what a welcome packet or something like that, we can create digitally so that they can get to know public safety. They can get to know the Lamarque Fire Department, the police department, if they have questions about court, if they have questions about what's going on in the city. Obviously, economic development, I've talked about that. This also includes just as we add new facilities, as we update our facilities, many of you have seen the updates to the parks and updates to even transition of departments from one building to the next. We want to make it evidently clear that if somebody is coming for a building permit, that they go to the right place. If they're coming to pay their water bill, that they don't go to the fire station. And I know I'm kind of exaggerating to make a point, but we want to make it easy for new people moving into the city of Lamarque to understand and to be a part of their local government, such as watching the meetings that we're currently having, as well as understanding boards and commissions, what those are evident for. This will also include us updating this, showing the people that are involved, how they contact, if they need to put in a request, and all the above. The capital improvements, just because it's been talked about so much, it is a plan for Lamarque, for us to look at all the things there. Vinny, if you keep going down, and again, those are all customizable. Everything here is more customizable than our system currently is. And that's really to the extent that we don't have to wait 5 years, 2 years, or even 1 year to update some of this stuff. To me, when I walked in, obviously I want to change everything, but I also have enough wisdom to know I'm not going to be the young, sharp dressed guy that comes in and changes everything and make people hate him. So you have to listen to what is needed. You have to listen to the citizens in order, to make the biggest impact. For us, one of the major things in how people off social media and all of the above get their news is our news corner. And really that pushes out what is happening in our city each and every week. Many of you have seen that, whether it's our mobile app, the community fair, as well as a new council member when they come on board. Vinny, if you'll come down just a little bit more. This I'm a little proud of, because I've heard specifically from, several citizens, some of which in the room, is our calendar was hard to read. I agreed with them 1000%. But again, back to, we didn't have the ability to change it because of the confines of our current system. With this new update, it's obviously a lot easier to read. It doesn't bombard you. It shows you kind of in real time, and you can look at not only meetings, events, we can add additional resources if there's things going on in your certain districts that we want to add. And again, this is the bare minimum, minimalistic for, really for me to show and sell it to the public, but it can be customizable if we want to add additional things, because citizens want to know, when cleanups are, when the cemetery board is going to do certain things, when the economic development board is doing other things. And so, that as a whole is really where it's at. I will say you at the top, Vinny, I will say that all of this does integrate with the mobile app. It is my gift. It's an 11-month project that I did in 3 months, but it's something that is very much needed as we head into 2024. I think it's evidently clear by the data that we've seen. There's exponential growth. We're over 20,000 citizens, and we need to be a city that gets that information in their fingertips yesterday.
Thank you, JB.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Pritchett on this communications update?
Well, I do have one.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, sir.
You said that the app was already live.
Yes, sir.
I thought that the last discussion we had on it, you were going to test it, you were testing it and bringing in some residents.
So
It is
well, I don't want to confuse our city's app, which is what's live, to the water consumption app that's not live yet. So there was two
We're
separate.
talking about this one.
the city of Lamarque app.
No, yeah, this is Lamarque,
Uh-huh.
right? That's what we talked about.
Well,
There were two
Yeah,
different
so-
discussions.
yeah, it's two different discussions. The city of Lamarque app, right? The app that we can have access to on our phone to have a mobile version of the city's website
I
is
see that
live.
here now.
It's
When I
live.
asked about that,
Right,
I couldn't reach it, but now I see it now.
right.
Yes, sir.
The last meeting we had, there was a presentation on the request for an app to look at, be able to monitor your water consumption.
I understand.
That's the one that we're still going to beta test with residents.
Okay, now, seeing this,
But to your
I have to create an account though.
Yes, sir. You don't have to create an account. You have to create an account if you want to log in to submit requests, because that's your contact information for staff to respond back to you. So basically it prevents spammers, and it would prevent somebody from creating bogus requests to bog down our system.
So I don't have to create an account if I want to pay my bill.
What you would do is you already have your account information for your water bill.
Yeah.
And so you would just use that account information to log in for that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And to your point, I guess to the city of Lamarque app, I have contacted, I had about 20 citizens that I utilized of different genders, different backgrounds, different technology advances, different age groups, so that I didn't get a bunch of 15-year-olds that say, oh yeah, it's easy to use. And then people on the other end of the spectrum saying, well, I don't even know how to use it. And I will say that even the boards that I used, from the TERS board, building standards, and there was one other one, I took specific people that, again, would utilize that on a regular basis. I will say that of those, I didn't get major complaints. I got a few things that I was happy that they did point out, so that can make it a bit simpler. I think the TERS boards are my biggest fan of the mobile app. And, you know, I'll just kind of keep that as a good day for me.
On that screen,
Yes, sir.
what's that, the N next to the
N-
YouTube? What
That's
is that?
next door.
Oh, next door.
Yes, sir. And so all of those up there are social media placeholders, but really, as we look into 2024, developing how we get more information with that, how we utilize information, even me putting LinkedIn up there. I think that through work with Mr. Hoosier, our new HR director, it's the importance of really culminating that to not only to attract talent coming in as staff, but also to push out on LinkedIn, which is, you know, Facebook for professionals, the work and the development that all of the city of Lamarque is doing in the state of Texas.
Okay, JB, is this primarily an update on the website
Yes, sir.
you're giving us?
Yes,
Nothing
sir.
Nothing else?
No, sir.
Very good. Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Pritchett.
Yes, sir.
Let's move to item 5. Citizens' participation limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments from the public will be heard at this time. Any person with city-related business who signed up and speak to council limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, you may give the mayor or the presiding officer your full legal name, your address, the item you wish to speak about. Compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city may not deliberate on comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed, and personnel matters should be addressed by the city manager during normal business hours. Press *6 to mute or unmute yourself if you are participating via telephone. If you are participating via the Zoom platform on a smartphone, tablet, or a computer, there should be an icon, a microphone icon on the lower portion of your screen. If you are visiting with us in person, you may approach the podium in the middle of the room. Give myself your name, your address, and you will be allotted 3 minutes. Vinny, are there any persons online wishing to speak tonight? Very good. We move now to those that are here in person. Mr. Richard Holcomb. Welcome, Mr. Holcomb. Please state your name and your address for the record when you reach the podium.
Yes, sir. Richard Holcomb, 2708 Magnolia Drive. And first, I'd like to congratulate our new council lady. Congratulations, and we'll be glad to talk with you.
Yes, sir.
But I'm concerned. I bought my house in 1995. And from the time I bought my house till about a month and a half ago, we had an 8 to 10 acre soccer field with the Lamarque soccer team used to use it as a practice field. You had to go through JC Park to get to it. And every time we got a bunch of rain, that park would absorb all of the rain before it got into our backyards. The park would be full of water, and then it'd ease up into our backyards. Well, with all the leftover dirt from this new drainage pipe, it started out, there was 3 huge piles of dirt in that soccer field, which they were using as a holding area. But about 2 weeks ago, somebody gave them the word to spread all of that dirt over that whole, well, it's over about half of that soccer field has got an elevation change of about 1 foot. So we've always had a low spot on the back of our yards and right there in JC Park. And now that 3 or 4 inches of water that was always stayed after a big rain is now 1 foot. And my neighbor, he couldn't come tonight because he's babysitting, but he lives on the other side. I live on the west side of JC Park. He lives on the east side of JC Park, and he rides a motorcycle. Well, his driveway to get to his garage is the road going down to JC Park. Well, now he has probably a foot and a half of water that stands in front of his garage. They've always had a drainage like a raised concrete thing that has open sides where the water can go in. It's always been on the northeast corner of JC Park. Well, it was in the lowest part of the park on that side. Well, they moved that new drainage further north, and which has made it looks like about 6 to 8 inches higher elevation. It used to be between about 20 foot south of where it is now, the new one is now, and water don't run uphill. So there's actually right there at the JC driveway on the east side of the Magnolia where they meet, there's a manway there, solid cover manway. Well, to try to alleviate, I guess, the water that was standing in my neighbor's yard, they dug a ditch to that solid steel manway that has not even, usually have 2 little holes in it, if they pick it up. There's no holes in it. So I guess my complaining to the city manager and other people, somebody went over there and now they've picked that manway up and got it where, God forbid, a little kid or an animal get over there, they're going to drown because they took a manway and they've got it where for the water to drain. Is my 3 minutes up?
Yeah, finish your statement.
But all I'm saying is that soccer field it had San Augustine grass, beautiful grass. I wished I knew all this was going down. I'd have put it in my backyard.
Yeah.
But now half of it's nothing but mud, which I understand the drainage. I mean,
Right.
the rain. But my concern is everybody that lives in that neighborhood on both sides of that park are now going to be, the backyard's going to be flooded every time it rains because the elevation of that park, of that soccer field, has been raised at least 6 to 8 inches.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you.
Mr. Rick Saylor is our Public Works Director. He is directly in the back. Would you visit with him before you leave?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Garcia, would you email the council an update of what that discussion led to? If we don't receive any remedy, when I say we, you don't receive any remedy within the next 72 hours, Ms. Already is your council person. I'm your mayor. Certainly you can call us, email us, and we'll make sure that we move this ball forward. Thank you. Greg Cornett. Welcome, Greg. Name and address for the
I
record,
think I need
please.
9 minutes because I'm representing 3 different things. Oh, anyway, Greg Cornett, I'm on planning and zoning. I've been on several boards and committees. I think most of you know me.
Need your
I'm
address.
Snow King over here. Anyway, I'm gonna start. Where do I start?
Wait,
Man, like
Before you start, Greg, I need your address.
1310 Cedar Drive. And anyway, first off, I just want to say I'm on this impact committee, and wow, I'm glad I came. We've asked a lot of these same questions. Something that didn't get mentioned, the next meeting's on the 22nd at 3:30. If somebody wants to come take part of that, I'm open for it. Okay, secondly, as far as the rezoning to the I-3 that's coming up, that's beyond our control now. I just want you to take in consideration the people that live in that area. They really want a large easement around that area whenever you make your final decisions on that. Okay, now, thirdly, I'd like to some way get Cedar cleaned up. I mean, there's tons of debris. It's not under construction, but it's kind of ugly. I don't know. There used to be a street cleaner. From what I understand, maybe that's not in existence anymore, but it used to go down the street like once a week, and now haven't seen it for a long time. I'm willing to pitch in if we can put together a crew. From what I understand, there's too much traffic going into that corner, and that's part of the reason why it hasn't been maintained there. Okay, now thirdly, I'm wondering what's going on over here in the field where the school is, because there's a huge pond. I mean, I just call it Cedar Drive Pond over here, where the temporary building is back up in there. And that's about it. That's about all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Cornett.
Tried to be brief.
You were very concise
Okay.
and efficient.
Thank
Thank you. Is there a point of information? If there's a point of information,
Sorry. 3:30.
point of information, say that again, Ms. Van Steven. The impact. The impact committee meeting is January 23rd at 3:30. You said 22nd, it's the 23rd. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we are at item 6, old business, 6.1, resolution number letter R dash 2023 dash 0071. Accepting the results of the 2021-2022 fiscal audit. I see Ms. Turner approaching. I have a question for council. Ms. Turner, any one of us who might answer. I believe the last time that we attempted to accept the results of this audit, the council had questions for the auditing firm. Am I correct in saying that that's true?
There were some typographical corrections that needed to be made. And those were done and they're reflected in the documents in front of you.
So refresh my memory. Did the council ask for the auditor to return when the report was to be accepted for
Mayor,
further
he's
questions?
actually on Zoom. as
There it
well.
is.
I'm
Okay.
gonna present what
Ms. Turner,
we did,
go ahead.
and then he can answer.
Yes,
any
ma'am. Go
more
ahead. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council, citizens of Lamarck. Back in October, we presented, or Brooks Watson presented the annual financial report. And they also presented an audit presentation. On that audit presentation, it was a PowerPoint. And on page 8 of that PowerPoint, there was a typographical error dealing with the ending fund balance. And there was an asterisk that says unassigned fund balance for the general fund was, okay? Previously it stated was 3.2 million. And then the ending fund balance was 3.4 million. That was simply a typographical error because on page 26 of the AFR, it was a balance sheet. It states the correct amounts for the total fund balances, which is $3,466,554, and the unassigned fund balance of $3,296,419. Brooks Watson has since corrected that PowerPoint presentation to reflect those corrected amounts. And that concludes my report. That was it. That's all that needed to be corrected. The AFR is correct as stated on page, like I stated on page 26. And the PowerPoint and Brooks Watson, Mike did make it very clear that PowerPoint, it was just done as a courtesy, just to kind of summarize the AFR.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was it. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Council, do we have any questions for Ms. Turner or for Brooks and Watson concerning the audit report of 2021, fiscal year 2021, 2022?
Yes,
Go ahead, John.
yeah, and they're on the line, you said.
Yes, they are online.
We're confirming communication, but yes,
Okay.
they're logged in. I just want to make sure that they're responding.
I am here. This is Mike Brooks.
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Joe Compton here. The only thing I noticed in the attachment here, and I'd ask this, as in past years, the letter that accompanied the report is not included in this. And so I asked that the letter with your notes be included, because that's how we look at, it breaks down the recommendations you're making. You have that?
You mean when you say the notes, do you mean the audit findings? Or the notes to the financial statements?
The summary letter.
The summary letter.
Findings?
Yeah, the material weaknesses.
Right.
We consider the following deficiencies in it to be material weaknesses. That portion is missing from this.
That was in a separate document.
I
It
know,
wasn't
but
included, right?
Historically,
Okay,
they're all together.
okay. Mike?
Yes.
That the audit findings, Mayor Pro Tem stated that was normally attached with the other, the portion of the AFR. Do we know why that wasn't attached this time?
Well, nothing has changed since we made the presentation. So the letters that we gave you previously are still the current letters, along with the same audit reports. So if they weren't included in the packet, I'm not.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, within the actual audit, the 157 pages that are in here of this, are you referring to the independent auditor's report that is from cards at page 6? Is it the fact that it's embedded in the document and not separate? Is that?
I think he's referring to the audit letters that we provided.
The audit letters, the final.
Yeah, they just, whoever.
They're not, I looked again and they're not here. It's not included. Historically, it's included in our comprehensive annual audit. We're calling this an annual financial report.
And it was included in the original. Now, it was included in the
It
presentation.
was separate like this.
Yeah, the hard copy presentation,
Correct.
not in the digitized portion
Correct.
for our.
Correct.
So if we accept this, I want to make it.
No, you're right,
that
right.
It has to be accepted with the.
So that portion, I guess this is a Caesar question. So that portion of the audit was never online for for our residents to see?
I'd have to confirm. I thought that it was, but I will confirm.
Okay, well, we need to probably have make that part of any action that be provided.
Certainly, and if it's not there, we can make sure to upload it and
Yeah,
post it.
we'll definitely, I think that what's important for us now as a council is to start directing these things so that we'd have a record of directing the administration to do certain things. Any further questions, Joe?
And I don't know if it's appropriate to include in this, but I would just like to once again encourage us to go back. I know we had our difficulties or challenges in the accounting area, but as a goal, we should be striving for comprehensive annual audit, not this financial report that we're accepting right now. That's just
Yes, the finance department, we're working diligently to be able to close out FY 23 timely. Our goal is this Friday. So we're working very hard so that we can produce an ACFR instead of an AFR. Mhm.
And Mayor and council members, I have to say this, once again, I'm just so impressed both with the city manager and with Ms. Turner, as well as our outside accountants in terms of the efforts that they've made in terms of dealing with all the challenges that have been associated with preparing this particular financial report to close off the 22 year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Turner, previous to this visit that we have with you tonight, you supported the idea that the finance department should provide monthly reports for council. Where are we on that task?
The department heads have been receiving now, I think for 2 months, budget versus actual reports. I need to get those to council because you guys need to see your budget to actual reports as well. We have now a solid close date each month. We close on the 15th of every month. So all departments are aware that whatever revenue, expenses, whatever it is that they need to submit, it must be submitted by the 15th of every month. And then by the 18th of the month, we distribute the budget versus actual reports to all department heads, and it'll be going to council going forward as well.
Very good. Just going back to clarify what we're talking about, this was one of the recommendations of the audit report, that we have timely reporting and that communication be made. So we're just following up on that.
Yes.
Council, do we have any other questions for Ms. Turner?
I move acceptance of the financial report for the 22 fiscal year with including the notes. I call them the notes, material weakness notes.
Let me ask you this. I want to see if we can provide for some sort of an amendment, Gus, to this. But first, I want to see if we can do it. Then I'll ask Joe if he'd take it. Joe is making the motion that we accept the financial report with the letters and findings included.
But it's not in here.
It's not on the, it's not in the.
Yes, that document's been previously provided to council. I believe that we have sufficient direction from you in your motion describing what that document is. That document is in existence. We'll just include it. That's fine.
Is it appropriate to add an amendment to direct the administration to provide policies to address those findings in that document?
Yes, that's fine. And it may be provide some update to council on how the.
Would you prefer us to have this next meeting in a clear format?
I would, if council wants the policies themselves, I would, yes, I'd like
Let's do it
that
that
to
way.
be in the meeting, but if council wants to direct us to bring those to you, that's fine.
Let me, in this discussion, ask Kiara to then provide for, and no, I just want an agenda item next meeting. Every one of those findings, let's make sure that we have a plan, that Ms. Turner and Mr. Garcia provide this council with a plan to address those issues, so this council can accept that plan, adopt that plan, so that Ms. Turner can get moving with what she needs to do to get this corrected.
Mayor, I do want to state that we've already gotten moving.
You already got moving, yes.
I think it was maybe, can't recall offhand, but maybe 12 to 15 findings. I could successfully and strongly say 7 of those have been resolved.
Very good,
So we're in the process of the other ones as well.
very good.
So yes,
will bring
I can provide a report.
Very
on
good.
that.
Very good. Documentation is what we want for our residents to be able to see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
But that's tremendous news, Ms. Turner.
Okay.
We're halfway there. Very
Halfway
good.
there.
Very good. Joe made a motion. I'm gonna allow that to be on the next agenda item. Joe's motion simply is to accept the audit report as is, including the letters findings. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item 7, new business. 7.1, proposed ordinance, creation of heavy industrial zoning district. This is the first reading of the ordinance. I believe we want to allow Gus to read us into this. Gus, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yes, Mayor, thank you. This has been a long process. This process, and if at any time council wishes me to skip ahead or any questions, please interrupt me, let me know. I want to be very clear with council with what we are asking council to do tonight. And that is create a heavy industrial zoning district in the city. We are not asking the city or council, nor is the city council rezoning any property tonight or upon second reading of this. Now, as my counterpart colleague, John Hightower, and I told the Planning and Zoning Commission at the same time, we do not want to hide the ball from anyone. We anticipate that the railroad TCT terminals will ask the city to rezone the property they own. This is generally the old golf course property. So how did we get here? Sometime before 2016, the Tech City Terminals purchased approximately 300 acres of land in the city of Lamarque. This is land north of I-40, generally north of I-45, south and west of Highway 3. Then in 2016, I believe at some point in 2016, the TCT approached the city and the EDC to purchase the 123 acres that generally both of those entities own. That this area is going to generally be the property that is adjacent to the 300 acres they owned, and is going to be more commonly known as the old golf course in the city of Lamarque. December 26th, as part of that deal, that's where this idea of a heavy industrial, or specifically a tank farm, was created. That's where it came from. In 2016, as a condition of the sale, it was in the contract that the city signed that was approved by the EDC and the council that there would be a tank farm. That's where the idea came from. It is not something that is new. I understand. Now, let's talk about that contract a little bit. What the city was doing was mainly giving up its right of way, conveying its right of ways in the land it owned. The EDC was doing the same. All told, about $1.5 million came to the city and the EDC. What the city got that money. The EDC got the right to purchase approximately 28 acres of land along frontage along I-45. The EDC's plans for that, I'm not privy to. I would assume some sort of commercial development. We all know I-45 is coming. I'm sure we knew then too. That was the genesis of it. Also, as part of the contract, the city agreed to grant the railroad a conditional use permit for a tank farm. We will come back to that. That wasn't the best way to go about that. But regardless, that happened. The terms of that conditional use permit were vague. They were essentially, you will get a conditional use permit. That's pretty much it. So, sale closes. City's right-of-ways are released. Land is conveyed. The EDC then deposits money to exercise its option in January or February 2017 to purchase the 28 acres. Then not a lot goes on, because right now what we're doing is the parties are working on the CUP that's going to come to council and would need to be approved. That's where, candidly, things, not to be glib, went off the rails, as it were. Council on May 30th of 2017 held a meeting where a CUP was issued. There were issues. The railroad objected to specific terms in that CUP. Generally, the issues that were objected, well, there were issues with the CUP. Some were objected to, some were not. There was a requirement that coastal scenes be painted on the tanks that were built. It's not really enforceable in a CUP, but there was a requirement of a payment of $1 million a year as a permit fee. The railroad objected to that. There was a tax abatement for the railroad for 2018 to 2023. The railroad didn't object to it, but it wasn't really done correctly, the best way. And then the time limits, there were time limits placed on the storage of the railroad cars. The railroad objected to 3 of those 4 items. Obviously, no one's going to object to a tax abatement. The ones they the ones that gave them the most heartburn were the $1 million a year permit fee. A little about that, what council's concern was, and I'm not giving away trade secrets here. Anyone can drive around, and on December 30th through about January 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in there, you're going to see a bunch of railroad cars next to the tank farms. Here's why. The product that is in the tanks on the ground, not the railroad cars, is taxable for property tax purposes if it's in the tanks on on January 1st, just as everybody's property is. If it is pumped into a rail car, it is now a good in transit and is not subject to ad valorem taxes. That's what, I mean, it's not a trade secret there. It's what happens. The city became aware of that. And that's where this idea of $1 million permit is. Because with the heavy industrial zone, remember, what we're looking for is development here, and development that will will diversify the economy for the city, provide jobs, but it's also going to diversify the tax base, provide ad valorem revenue, and help shift the burden from the residents for all of city services. The residents would benefit by having this, just like Texas City does, basically more money coming into the city and less of a burden on them, because this industrial facility that is built is going to likely be the most valuable property in the city, just as is present in Texas City with their plans, or its plans. So that's where this idea of $1 million permit fee came from. And then finally, there was this time limit requirements for the storage of rail cars. There was also some language in there about where they could and could not be on the property. This is in the weeds, but generally speaking, federal law is going to preempt the municipal zoning ordinances on this sort of thing, where rail cars can be and where they can operate. So that requirement was never really enforceable, or likely was not enforceable. So the railroad objected. They gave a railroad representative was here, spoke to council, voiced her concerns. Council passed the CUP and directed the attorney to work with the railroad on coming up with a CUP that would be workable for both sides. For 3 years, not a lot. This predates me, but best I can tell, for 3 years, not a lot happened. Then there was likely intermittent negotiations, but nothing substantive that came to council for action. Then in May of 2020, the EDC sued the railroad, asking the court to essentially order the railroad to complete the sale of the 28 acres. Then as a result of that, the city was sued because it did not grant the CUP. The railroad was contending, well, we were entitled to a CUP. This was the railroad was contending this is a 3-party contract. Yes, we have to sell the land, but we don't have to do that until we get our CUP. So since that was not done, you city have to give us a CUP, and then we'll sell the land. Again, mid to end of 2020 is when that happens. Of course, at that time, COVID was roaring. So it took until 2022 to get the case mediated. We've now come up with a settlement agreement. We negotiated with the that settlement agreement we've asked the council to previously approve. And as part of that, it contemplates a rezone of this property into a heavy industrial district. Now, where did this heavy industrial district that we are asking the council to propose come from? This is a result of negotiations between myself, city manager's office, Kathleen Van Stavern and her staff, and Den Ho, the city engineer, working with and John Hightower, working with the railroad to come up with something that we thought would further not only the goals of development, but also protect the residents in the area. That's how we got to where we got. And that's how this document that is before you came about. We looked at specifically the cities of Webster and Texas City. We thought Webster is commercial, it's commercial with some residential, but it's something with a very vibrant tax base. And we also looked at Texas City because they're our neighbor, and Texas City, the plants and the residents seem to coexist there. I mean, there isn't conflict everywhere. We get that, but we thought that those would be a good place to go. Given that, speaking directly to Mr. Cornett's issue, he used the term easement. I'll use the term buffer. A buffer, we asked for a buffer zone, that the buffer zone in this ordinance is larger than what you're going to see in the heavy industrial zone for Texas City. Specifically, it is 500 feet from if it's a heavy industrial use, there has to be a buffer zone of 500 feet between that use and a residential district. Now, there are things that can be in the buffer zone. I'm not going to say that is absolutely the case. Things like drainage, you can run a utility line through there. But as part of that buffer zone, what we wanted to do was help ensure that, and you'll see it in the ordinance, we don't want to have a buffer zone, but then people park something there that's gross and they're unloading nasty, like that somewhat defeats the purpose. So what we tried to do was not only, of course, we require screening and landscaping, of course, but restrict what can be done in the buffer zone. So, okay, you can have 1-ton vehicle parking. That's going to be your standard truck. But we're not going to have heavy vehicles, those sorts of things to try to address the citizens' concern or the concerns of people who live nearby there. And of course, then also, yes, it's the first 20 of the buffer can be commercial or from a commercial area, or 40 feet for a residential. The first 20 and 40 feet, it can only be parking. You're not, because again, we felt that parking would provide that buffer from the actual use, because that's ultimately what we're trying to prevent. Put shortly, is we don't want a heavy industrial use on the property line. That's what we were trying to do, and that's what we feel this does. Now, the thing specifically, things that are not permitted in this district that you are not allowed to do, those are set out in subsection F. Of course, no nuclear power, no concrete or asphalt batch ready mix plant operations. We felt that would create a lot of dust, for lack of a better term, overspray. No munitions, no explosives, that sort of thing. I may, if only make myself laugh here, no hog or chicken farming. Chickens were the other thing that you will see in here is that we don't know what they're going to do or what anyone would want to do. But one thing that we were particularly concerned about is this idea of overspray. Because of course, I mean, when somebody walks out to their car and they see paint on it, well, we have addressed that. What we have done is require that if that is going to occur, it must occur in enclosed structures to contain that sort of issue. And you'll see that in section C9. Finally, as I said, we are not asking the city to rezone anyone's property today. This is just to adopt the district. Generally, I can speak generally, your heavy industrial districts, your plants They provide additional tax base, they provide jobs, they help stimulate the local economy. If this passes today and then passes again on second reading, the only difference will be that in your code of ordinances, there will now be a heavy industrial district. The city council retains the absolute authority to rezone or not rezone anyone's property to that district. And if, and we know when someone comes to tell us, to ask you all for that rezone, they will have to make the case to you all why this is good for Lamarck. What is there, and just as this council just a couple of months ago asked the battery power plant, what do our citizens get out of this? What do my voters get? That is something that that whoever asks for y'all to rezone is something that you will get to ask them and they will need to answer for you.
Well, very good. Let's, I know Joe had some things he wanted to share. Joe and I participated on this negotiation team to come to an agreement with the railroad and with the Economic Development Corporation. Let me share some things about what happened prior to Mr. Campion's arrival on this council, so we can get clarity. As you said before, the council asked for $1 million per year permit fee, and that was in a direct response to the idea that we would need to provide for public safety. We were looking at the idea that we would need to provide for an aerial apparatus, additional firefighters, additional police officers, additional emergency medical service workers. And if there was a shell game that would be played with those tanks, we would find ourselves with a tremendous financial burden for providing for the safety of our residents. That's where that idea came from. So we wanted to be clear on that part of what we were talking about. I know that Mr. Campion wanted to ask some other stuff about the settlement and moving forward. So we'll yield the floor to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. Gus, one issue that certainly was something that I learned, and you hit upon it, but I think there's relevance in this, is that there is federal law out there. And of course, I was of the belief that we could set forth and limit and set, but there is federal law out there with regard to the railways. And I've learned, participating in the Houston Galveston Area Council and the billions of dollars that are going to the federal railroads, learn more about this. But there's basically this, the federal law out there that really restricts what we can do with regard to what Union Pacific wants to do in Texas City Railroad with their particular spur of rail line there. And and an example, by the way, I was out on a fire call out in Sweeney, Texas. On my way back in Brazoria County, I was surprised to see along 288 in just on the outskirts of Angleton, within the Angleton city limits, a whole new railway yard there that has been developed there. And certainly it's down the road from a planned development that is occurring all along that area there. It's nice. It's nicely done. It's very clean, but it was something that's definitely new out there. Now, follow up, Gus. This is one area, as I looked at this, to be clear, we're just creating a category under this. We're not designating any areas at this point. We're just supplementing our existing zoning to create this heavy industrial area. And as you rightfully identified in your development of this particular ordinance, you look to Webster, which is geographically limited as Lamarck is. Yet those of us who go down to Webster will recall seeing over years the gradual development of those tank farms that have occurred there in their community, and which have, let's also remember, Webster has a very low property tax rate. And in fact, the vast majority of their funding for their municipal government comes from the taxes that are being generated, not on the sales tax side, but also from that particular development there within the city of Webster. My only issue, and this is something that I still am not clear about, because in Lamarck, while we have this designation, it has historically not been utilized by anyone. But during the last administration, there was the creation of a bill passed that created opportunity zones. And opportunity zones are designed to revitalize and create jobs and tax incentives and provide tax incentives to various businesses and give them preferential tax treatment if they invest in or develop certain areas. It just so happens that this area is within our opportunity zone. So I would like more information. What's the impact going to be if we develop this ultimately with regard to that designation as an opportunity zone?
Right. Honestly, I don't know today. I think that as part of any development, the landowner is Texas City Railroad. I mean, they're big business here. They're probably well versed in that, and they're going to come with a plan to how this will benefit the city. And I think that when they do that, I will definitely tell them that's a concern. But when they do that, that's something they should address with y'all is the opportunity zone issues that are present here.
Well, also, what would that require as far as if we have something like that, wouldn't that require, like the mayor said, more firefighters, maybe even a new station? $1 million is not going to be a drop in the bucket for something like that. And they're already opposing that.
Right. Well, so the city's ability to provide fire and safety services, and I'm not going to put Chief Merriman on the spot, because I'll be honest, there have been no plans submitted. That would be the ability of the city to provide those services would be part of the developer, the owner's application to the city, is how we want to build this. Okay, how do we service it? How do we provide services to it? That would absolutely be part of it. And that is something, Councilwoman, that I would expect y'all to ask. It is normally asked of us, is how to, just as we did with the battery. The mayor pro tem was concerned about runaway, I forget what they were called, and if I try to guess, I'll probably get it wrong. But the public safety element will absolutely be something that the Texas City Terminals, when they come to rezone, will have to address with you all.
So let's be clear. Tonight, this is again, following Mayor Pro Tem, tonight is simply about adding a category.
Correct.
There is no person that we know or entity that we know that is guaranteed to apply for this category, but we are in good faith, consistent with the settlement that the previous council approved. We're moving forward, and part of that is providing for an opportunity for them to develop in our city.
Right, and I would follow up on that with that, Mayor. There's no guarantee that y'all rezone any property. This is just the creation of a zone.
We can pass this tonight, and the railroad can come before us, and we can still say no.
That is y'all's prerogative, yes.
Very good. Any further questions? Good.
Ms. Van Staveren, I think I need your historical knowledge here on my next question. What, the point that we're not designating a specific area will open the door for any other entity to request a designation of another part of the city.
Yeah,
As,
correct.
as, is
That's
this
correct.
accurate?
Yes.
So having said that, I seem to recall that we had a oil exploration company that wanted to do some, put up a, what do you call it, a well? That we're
Yes.
wanting to do some over on the west side of town,
Yes.
along, near Walmart and Sam's,
Yes.
in that area, near
Yes.
near the new Texas City development.
It-
But for the fact that we didn't have a category, as I recall,
It was not a permitted use. That's
it was
correct.
not a permitted use.
Correct.
Now, and I think they still own the land. This is now another mechanism for that group to come.
The whether council chooses to rezone property or not is a legislative act, and you all have the authority to do that. That is something that is in your discretion. So they, just because we create this zone, council is not necessarily exposing itself to, oh, well, you created a zone, now you have to accept a rezone. Councils across this state, this council has to as well deny rezones. It's in your right. That is a legislative right.
So is the ordinance really, can we strengthen that, the whereases perhaps? Then Gus, just to follow your point there, that this is exclusively, any designations are exclusively at the discretion of the council. There's no, the creation of this category does not create a right.
Right. Yes. And case law is going to provide that you don't have a property right in a zoning or in a zoning ordinance that does not apply to you. That doesn't apply to your property. Yes.
Did you hear when they were trying to do that?
I wasn't a part of that discussion and all.
Okay.
And of course, anyone that did want to apply for this rezone designation, they would have to go follow the normal process, planning and zoning,
Right,
and then come to council. So,
right. Let me, Gus, let me jump in and ask you, I'm sorry, James, James has been so quiet. Go ahead, James, and then I'll follow you.
So I have one question on this ordinance, because I tried to look up what the definition of open earth storage of petroleum products means, and I can't really find a true definition. Are we talking about just digging a hole and putting it in there, or?
Generally, it's going to be digging a hole. Yes. Or building up an earthen berm. Yes, for lack of a better term.
That would kind of be defeated by all EPA.
The water table's pretty high over there.
right.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Ms. Van Staveren, what, could you give me three examples of companies or guns of companies that would use this type of zoning?
So I think the first one is a tank farm. The tank farm was what was originally contemplated for this area. And these other two, I have no knowledge that this is what's coming. And I don't want anyone to think that.
Right,
But the rail spur thing, and then I know we see a lot on these big warehouses. I believe they're going in and kind of the Beltway in 288, these big logistical centers where things come in and then are distributed out throughout the country. I mean, Lamarque is on a major interstate corridor. 10 miles from a major one of the busiest ports in the country. So,
you know.
Thank you. That's all.
And again, I have no idea of any of the,
Right.
I just, yeah.
Examples, because, you know, you're talking about a new zoning,
Right.
then you want, you know, and for people that's not their warehouse.
Right.
They want to know what the potential are, because I'm going to study it to see
Right.
what it could be used for.
Right.
Last question I have, Gus, prohibited uses.
Yes.
Page 206.
Yes.
Item 6, aviation, spaceport, and other similar facilities. I just want to make sure that this does not cause us any issues if we are recruiting and possibly attracting organizations that will work with NASA.
Yes, so again, this will only apply to any district that is rezoned heavy industrial. The aviation thing, that was something that was consented to by the railroad. But if somebody's property happens to, or the railroad wants to amend this to allow aviation and spaceports, that is absolutely something, again, that council has the discretion to do.
If we were to pass this tonight on first reading and we perhaps look at that language to make sure that we are not prohibiting ancillary.
You would not be prohibiting that anywhere other than where this zone is. And if that is a concern, that is absolutely something that could be amended in the future.
But
Okay.
would it also, couldn't they apply for a variance?
They could. They could.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Very good. Any, go ahead, Jim.
One other, this is just confirming what Trey said. I also seem to recall that this area also has a designation as a foreign trade zone.
That is possible. I don't know that.
I've not been aware of that.
Yeah, it is. The Lamarck and there's Hitchcock. Once again, these things have not been properly marketed by our economic development, but those opportunity zones and foreign, you could.
The free trade
warehouse-
zones, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Free
again,
trade.
the warehouse, that was just something I
No,
was
no,
throwing
but
out. I don't-
when you mentioned that came to mind, that we do have also. So I am curious, just by way of further information, how this would impact those particular tools that are available, that we've not properly been pushing, but they're there.
And I think that as a city, we've proven that with the Amazon and logistics, now that they didn't open their Lake City office, now that location in Lamarck has doubled in size. So I think this area has proven that we are like as Gus said, a logistical area of distribution, so. Mhm.
Is there, look, Mayor,
Go ahead.
is there any rush for us to pass this tonight? Is it going to impact our?
Yeah,
I'm
it would
ready
be
to vote.
it would be best if it,
Okay.
and again, this would just be first reading.
All right.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we will entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7.2, proposed resolution calling for the general election to be held on May 4th, 2024 to elect one mayor, one council member District A, and one council member District 3, each for a 3-year term. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
The second?
Second.
Go ahead, Jim.
A question. The election. This just envisions one voting site, correct? Or is it both?
This is
the
just
west
a
side on
calling.
the-
This is just us calling the election. The voting sites will be determined by when we bring, hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have the contract from the county where they will give us what their designated polling sites are. This is just us starting the process so we can get those applications in, so we can identify candidates to actually order the election.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I hope, if, as you're having those discussions, that we have 2 voting sites, that for purposes of this election. But so move, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I mean, yes, that's all my question.
Very good. Just let's make sure that any recommendations that we have from the county be provided with some historical data. So
Yes.
if they're recommending 4 polling locations, what did we have in the past? How has it, right? So that the council can see some consistency so that as we if we choose to amend, we'll be able to have historical data. Thank you. Any further discussion? Did I get a motion?
You did.
Let's call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8, city manager report. Council, we have 4 items before us. The city manager's report. None of these items, it appears, requires action from council, possibly with the exception of 8.4. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Garcia as it relates to the city manager's report, items 8 through 3? Let's move to item 4, Texas Water Development Board, Drinking Water State Revolving Fund submission. Mr. Garcia, would you like to elaborate?
Excuse me, Mayor. Yes, and I see Rick approaching. This is an item that was brought back to us for us to consider. The fact that we were asked to resubmit for this item. I would be remiss. Vinny, you can take this one down, actually. I did want to also state for folks that had questions about what we did over New Year's, Mayor, that data is provided within the packet as far as the police and fire involvement. But going to item 8.4 that's on here, this is the item that Rick brought forward, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Rick, could you give us a very brief statement on that?
Yes, Texas Water Development Board manages the federal program state revolving funds for drinking water and clean water being wastewater, actually. We submitted a project information form last year through this organization, Texas Water Development Board, for $20 million for replacement of 2-inch water lines. We were not selected to apply. We can resubmit in the 2025 intended use plan. We are listed on the intended use plan, and that's included in your packet. Being on that plan commits nothing to the city at this point until an application is actually processed. All it is basically projects that we would seek this type of funding for through the state revolving fund, which is an EPA driven mechanism for replacement of infrastructure. The large bipartisan infrastructure money that's coming down for utilities, for water and sewer utilities, is being handled through the SRF programs through the states.
Council, do we have any questions for Rick as it relates to item 8.4?
I do, Rick. And I'm seeing this, and by the way, this is the same issue that at the last Houston Galveston Area Council, I was lectured by several people that served on this committee that was looking over the grant submissions for I forgot it was something with safe sidewalks or something like that.
It was probably Safe Streets for All. That's one of the grant applications.
And there was only $3 million in the fund, and we submitted some submission that was like $2 million of the $3 million, and that wasn't very wise because we didn't get funded, number one, for that, but number two, as I've said, at least maybe when we're making these submissions, give us a chance to look over them somehow. But I see the same thing here. Is the reason why we didn't get funded is that a city, I mean, look, our ask is $16 million.
Actually, no, sir. The most of the Texas is a big state. The main a lot of the funding right now are going to Western Texas cities that are in dire need, much more need than what Lamarck actually has, to be honest with you. And there's only so much funding of that they do every year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the $20 million is actually a very small number in this program. So as far as the city requesting 20 million or 16 million, which was I refer to it as 20, but it was actually 16, so I misspeak, but the amount is not anything that caused us to be not qualified to apply. I think I've got it in the notes. We were like 150 out of 276 projects. So I do have it in my memo. So we're about halfway. There was a lot. And so anything above 151 through 276 didn't get invited either. So there are, 276 applicants in this request for funding through this program.
Rick, why, the other thing I noticed on this, so 77, 63, I'm beginning looking at these numbers. Number 77, the second one, 63, the third one, 42, the fourth one here. Those were funded projects, correct? If I understand this properly? Appendix G, project priority list.
I'm trying to get up with you. Yes, sir. Let me look. Yes.
And you'll notice this percentage disadvantage. Why don't we have a percentage for us?
One of the documents that I included was the forgiveness summary. And basically, based on the numbers that Texas Water Development Board runs, the annual median household income was greater than 75% of the state. And that disqualifies us from the forgiveness program. We knew we were pushing right up against that line. So based on those calculations and based on that average median income, we just did not qualify for forgiveness. And that
Say that again, how do they calculate? What?
That might be beyond my pay grade, but they use a calculation, and it's the annual median household income was greater than 75% of the state annual median household income.
Annual was greater than.
And when you talk about Texas, we all know Texas is a huge state, and a lot what drives down the total average median income, I believe, is probably Western Texas.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at my numbers.
I mean, Texas Water Development Board is a state agency.
Yeah.
We certainly are free to ask them questions if you think their calculations are wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and look, I'm sorry.
That's fine. So what the question is tonight is if we want to resubmit the project information form, there's no commitment to move forward with an application. The request that we have from Texas Water Development Board is if we want to resubmit the project as it stands, possibly add some additional information, which would possibly lower the score and invite us to get an invite. As you know, when we spoke 2 weeks ago, we have an invite to apply for the clean water funding, which we came to council for, and you granted us that permission to go forward with that. That is a $10 million program through the clean water. It's the same program. It's handled by the same people, Texas Water Development Board. One of them deals with wastewater and stormwater. The other one deals with drinking water. This is the drinking water.
And again, both of these are just simply submittals of information. This requires no action from council, or council is not authorizing or directing any administrative activities to pursue any loans or any of that. This is simply providing information.
On this particular one, yes, sir.
Okay.
The one that we addressed before was a request to intent to apply.
Right.
Which before applying, Mayor, if I can, before applying, that application would have to come forward for us to ratify.
Council, do we have any other questions? I don't think this takes action. Council, if we don't have any objections to this, since it's not requiring a council action, we'll move now to item 9. Thank you, Rick. Requests and announcements. Requests by mayor and council members. Items to be placed on future city council agendas and announcements on city events, community interests. Items of community interest include expressions of thanks, congratulations, condolences, information regarding the holiday schedules, honorary or salutary recognition of public officials, employees, other citizens, except that the discussion regarding a change in status of a person's public office, public employment, is not an honorary or salutary recognition for purposes of this subdivision. You can also have a reminder about upcoming events organized or sponsored by the governing body, information regarding a social, ceremonial, community event organized, sponsored by the entity other than the government body that was intended or is scheduled to be attended by a member of the government body or an official employee of the municipality or county. Announcements involving an imminent threat to public health, safety, and the people in the municipality or the county that has arisen after posting this agenda. And so we will start with Mrs. Allred moving forward. Is there any requests or announcements that you have at this time?
I don't have anything right now.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Allred. Mr. Ross?
I would like to, for a future council meeting, put on there to look into the game room ordinance and location proximity to facilities that could have underage persons in it, schools, daycares, etc. Also, I'd like to put out to the citizens to be careful if you're living near the railroad properties right now. There are people out there posing as city officials, asking you to call the railroad before you get permits and such, and listen to proposals for the railroad to buy your property before you try to build something. So take anything with a grain of salt, contact one of us, please, if that does happen, so that we can get to the bottom of this and try to fix this situation in an ongoing, as it's becoming an ongoing situation. That's all I have.
So yeah, thank you, James. Ms. Yancey?
I pray that everyone had a good holiday season and a safe one. I know I didn't say much about the fireworks, but my grandkids were here and they said, Lolly, let's go outside and watch the fireworks on New Year's Eve. I was like, Lord, they're not supposed to. That's supposed to be happening right now. So I don't know what we can do to, I think we did our best to communicate that it's illegal, but I guess it's not very effective. So maybe we need to kind of relook at that. Because it sounded like Beirut off of Meadow Lane, and it was everywhere. It was beautiful though, but it is illegal. So, and as a school teacher, you know, if you sometimes if you don't put the framework back down and remind people, then they will typically continue to disobey. So just something on that. If you could give me a report on where we are with our Church's Chicken and where they're gonna come in or not. I hate to even say that word, right? Chicken, but anyway. Number 2, when he said about the street sweeper on Cedar, and District A is a part of Cedar family. So could you let me know what's going on with that? As you know, there has been some complaints about with our code enforcement. And I want to make sure that that's not becoming a new issue as far as cleanliness. A safe city is a clean city. If you could give us also, City Manager, an update on our ARPA funds and what we're doing with that for next meeting. I'm looking forward to the community fair on January 13th. This weekend, this is MLK weekend, and there'll be a nice parade on Monday. And we're encouraging everyone to come out to that. It's one of our largest parades here in the city that we do in conjunction with Texas City as well. I am loving the sidewalks in front of the high school. That is a major change, and in front of all the way from Kelly's all the way back. And that is another thing that promotes safety. So I'm very excited about that. I did get some sad news though, that one of my favorite businesses was leaving Lamarck and going to Hitchcock. So we need to see what we can do to pump up some business at Gulfway Plaza, because I don't need anyone. Hitchcock will not be my competition. Okay. So let's see what we can do with our EDC to rev up some incentives to keep our persons in our Gateway Plaza. We're on 45. We should be hot and popping. Just want to encourage on that note, want to encourage everyone to shop local and to keep our businesses here, because our neighbors are competing with us. Our sister cities want to compete for that sales tax. So as the mayor was talking about impact fees, all of that plays a role in bringing that development. And also, could you give me a report on Brown Street, Jefferson and Meadow Lane? They've been on that list for a while. Could you let me know what time frame that they're going to be done this year, city manager? And on and just trying to spruce up some business. If you have any ideas, we're going to do an open mic February 13th to try to help Art of Coffee. And we're going to, hopefully we can do some more things at other businesses downtown, because if we don't promote our local businesses, no one will. So that's one thing that we're going to do to try to get people to shop here and play here. And I believe that is all I have. And thank you, Cesar, and thank you, staff. I hope you got some rest, but thank y'all for everything that y'all do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And wishing, of course, everyone in a dynamic new year. Well, Mark is going to have another dynamic year with things that are anticipated. I know we're heavily plugged in and networked with so many organizations. It took some time, but there's some payoff down the road. They're going to be occurring in 2024, and which for a city of our size, as a community, we should all be complimented in reaching that. I want to ask those of you who do not fear giving blood. There's a blood shortage by the different Red Cross and the Gulf Coast Blood Bank. If you consider making a blood donation, it would be very helpful. There's once again a shortage of blood, especially if you're type O, which is the universal donor blood on that side too. And I did notice the police department New Year's Eve activity report of 4 firearms being confiscated. That's my only comment. I don't approve of the fireworks. We're just seeing too much of it, but I certainly am not supportive of those people who are taking out their weapons. And I heard too much of that. That was more so than last year. And I think there's a messaging, Chief, and Chief Merriman as well, that as updates, reminders, when we have these opportunities to pop fireworks, that leave your weapons in your home behind and safely locked up as well too. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Joe. I wanted to add my request to Ms. Yancey's request, as well as to Mr. Cornett's request for a street sweeper. It's apparently missing in action, but the folks over on Mary and Melody Lane wanted me to share with this administration that they would desperately appreciate the street sweeper to sweep their streets, because the new drainage that was put in accumulated leaves. In this past hard rain, there was street flooding. What an unfortunate event for those folks who waited decades to receive the drainage repairs and upgrades that they received. Secondly, I wanted to call council's attention to two things that I'd like to work with council on sooner rather than later. Those things are a workshop, hopefully the end of this month, with Public Works, with Rick and with the leaders of the Public Works Department, because I would like this council to see an overview of the services that Public Works provides. I think that we are stretched too thin. There was once a staff level of 80 or so. Now we are hovering around 40. Councils previous to this one never readjusted or amended the service delivery of our Public Works Department. So while we are half the size, we are responsible for more services than we were when we were double the size. And so, council, I think that we need to take an in-depth look at our Public Works Department, work with Rick and Caesar to come up with those 4 or 5 things, maybe even 3 or 4 things that they do well for a city our size, so that we can focus on those things, so that we can train and recruit, retain, and provide resource for those 4 or 5, 3 or 4 things or so. Anything outside of that scope, then this council and councils subsequent to this one would have to find a way to outsource and pay for. We're stretched too thin. It's causing tremendous amounts of problems. There is an opportunity for us to receive direction from council, for council to provide a vision for Public Works, so the Public Works could get to moving toward and into that vision. Again, as we say with all things around here, without a vision, people tend to perish. Secondly, I'd like for council to work with myself, with Rick and with Caesar to not only provided an updated street maintenance program. This council previous to this one provided a street maintenance program. That street maintenance program needs to be amended based on real-time conditions of the streets of our city. But council, I want us to have the courage to move forward with providing for a proposal to fund this street maintenance program that we are endorsing again this year. And so I want us to earmark funds from our budget moving forward into next year, not only to name streets that need maintenance, but to provide for the funding of those streets and the maintenance of those streets. Caesar, I'd like to direct you to do several things. First thing is, I believe it was this time last year that I introduced this Marque 2050 program for the council's consideration. And we have not heard anything about a Marque 2050 program. We've heard a few updates. It's past time that the Economic Development Corporation provide for the resources for this plan to for the creation of this plan to be underway, for the selection of the consulting firm to be underway, for that process to be underway. We are behind timelines in moving this Marque 2050 plan forward. It was in the discussion last year, it was our idea that Marque move into 2024 with a brand new plan, or at least citizen engagement and involvement in the creation of this plan. So we don't have a plan, nor do we have any citizen involvement or participation in the creation of this plan, because we have not selected a consulting firm, and we have not, thank you, and we have not, we've not ensured that the Economic Development Corporation partners with us in this endeavor. And it is an endeavor that we partner with them primarily because Part of this plan will provide for, thank you, Kim, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Thank you. Part of that provides for economic development opportunities. The Economic Development Corporation, as well as this council, need to hear from the community as it relates to what this vision needs to look like. And that's one of the reasons why I had so many questions about this impact fee study, because all of these things that we're trying to piecemeal together would work efficiently and effectively if we have a vision or a way forward in this. And so this 2050 plan is important to the future of Lamarck, and I'd like to see some movement on it. The council believe that it's a good idea. So I think next meeting, we should be able to have some sort of movement on that plan. The second thing I want to direct the administration to do is to provide us with our third quarter report. The third quarter, again, let me back up. Each council member receives in their individual council budget $5,000 for the betterment of our community. Council members can choose to direct those funds for anything. I chose as mayor to direct my $5,000 to provide more information to our community in the form of progress reports. And what that simply is designed to do is all of council's actions for the quarter which we are covering, those things would be communicated via postcard and mailed to our residents. And so if you are a resident of Lamarck, every quarter you would get a report card. The council would be pictured, the city manager would be pictured, and it would simply say all of the things the council acted on. We passed this, or we denied that. We provided for this, we provided for that, so that our residents would be able to read what the council is actually doing, because there are a lot of questions. What have we done? What have we not done? We received the second quarter report. We are due the third quarter report. The third quarter ended September 30th. It is January the 8th, and we have not received the third quarter report. I've asked for this several times. The fourth quarter ended December 31st. And so in February, the residents of Lamarck should expect to receive the fourth quarter report, but it's January and we have not even received the third quarter report. That's unacceptable. And I'd also like to direct the city manager's office to update this council on every certificate of obligation project that we directed you to begin in this new budget fiscal year, October 1. There were monies in different certificate of obligations, 2017, 2016. We get it. We had this lengthy discussion and council directed you. We earmarked those dollars and we directed you to provide for the administration of those dollars for the upgrade of those services. I'd like to see where we are with those certificates of obligation and how much progress we've made in the first 3 quarters of this fiscal year. Lastly, I want to say January 13th will be our community fair, and I believe it will be our volunteer appreciation day. And this is a day that we appreciate every volunteer who has volunteered their time in our city and served our city in some capacity. This council is made up of 5 volunteers. And so we want to honor our volunteers. We do it every year. Previous years, we've done it in December. This year, we're doing it in January. I believe voting is still open for us as residents of this city on our website to go and vote for the board or the committee that you believed has served our city the best during this past calendar year. Many of our boards have done tremendous amounts of work. Parks Board, for example, our Keep Lamarck Beautiful committee have done outstanding work within our community. But let us not forget that our boards of adjustments, that our planning and zoning committee, and committees that do some of the hard, uncomfortable work moving our city forward. Those committees have worked as well this year. And so if you are a fan of one of our committees, we are asking you to go to our website and vote on the committee that you believe have served our city the best. One of the great things about this volunteer appreciation event is that we get to award the committee that receives the most votes as the volunteer committee of the year. And those committees take that competition very, very seriously. And so we want to thank them for their work, but we look forward to having a wonderful time with them on January the 13th. Did we get all of the announcements? Thank you. Kim had an announcement for us. And that announcement is we're reminded that January 9th, on tomorrow, we will celebrate as a country, I believe, Law Enforcement Day. And so kudos to all of the law enforcement officers, not only that serve the city of Lamarck, those that live in our great city, but also law enforcement community members all across this country. We again thank you for your service. Caesar, did you have anything else?
No, Mayor, you covered everything else. Just a couple items on upcoming events. We are partnering with the Texas A&M extension for that watershed steward program on February 28th. Even if you could just pull that up there. That will be hosted at Carbide Park. It'll be on the 28th from 1 to 5. And last but not least, the standard core water quality community sciences training that we'll be holding. You could put that one up real quick, Benny. That's the very next flyer. I believe it says TWS flyer. There you go. That's also on March 2nd from 9 to 1. That'll be at Highland Bayou Park.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caesar. We will now move to item 10, executive session. The City Council of the City of Lamarck, Texas reserves the right to adjourn into executive session at any time during this meeting to discuss any of the matters listed above. It's authorized by the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberations about real property, 551.073, deliberations about gifts and donations, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, deliberations about security devices, 551.087, economic development. Tonight, we are going into executive session on 10-1, section 551.071, consultation with attorney, Barbara Weidman versus the City of Lamarck, Texas, cause number 23-CV-1880 in the 10th Judicial District Court of Galveston County, Texas. We will recess at
8:51.
Excuse me again.
8:51.
8:51, and we will enter into executive session. You guys are ready?
Yes.
We are back from executive session. We have returned from executive session at what time?
9:06.
9:06. Item 11, actions taken from executive session. 11:1, section 551.071, consultation with attorney. Barbara Ryman versus City of Lamarck, Texas, cause number 23-CV-1880 in the 10th Judicial District Court of Galveston County, Texas. I will entertain a motion.
Motion for summary judge for the summary judgment.
Very good. And Mr. Ross is making a motion, I believe, to direct our city attorney to proceed pursuant summary judgment.
Yeah, authorize me to file a summary judgment on the city's behalf.
Very good. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item 12, adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Is
moved.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.
Wow.
Oh.